Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Witches the Moon. I'm your Monday hostess, Natalie. This is the third time now that I've tried to start this recording because first time I got interrupted by the dog, second time it stopped working. Hopefully this third time is the charm. It's like my screensaver went on, and as soon as the screensaver went on, the computer stopped working. So I don't know why. Normally it's not supposed to do that when it's recording something, but oh well, you know, hey. So I'm going to try to keep the little pointer thing going while I do this video. So this week's topic is Blood Magic. Now, I know that Blood Magic is a sensational title and a sensational topic. It's something that's often misunderstood, and people are like, oh, Blood Magic, here's where the real witchcraft begins. Well, let me tell you, a lot of people don't utilize blood in their practice at all. I do utilize blood in my practice, and I'll explain to you why in the course of this video. Now, let's talk a little bit about what is it that makes blood special. Really, you can use any bodily substance. You can use snot, urine, other substances that occur during certain times when you might be heightened in arousal, tears, anything of that nature, spit, all of that. And here's why this is important. Going back to the idea of Einstein, Einstein taught that all was energy, right? Energy is all around us. Everything about us is energy. Our bodies are energy contained within a physical vessel. Yes? Okay. We know that the brain works on electricity, which is, of course, energy. Your blood carries a lot of energy, but it's specific, and all of these bodily fluids, frankly, are specific to you, who you are. They contain the core nucleic parts of you, your DNA. For those of you that don't know, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. And what that is the building blocks of who you are specifically as an individual. No two people on this planet have exactly the same DNA. No two birds have exactly the same DNA. No two anything. It's what makes you uniquely you. So what this does is this gives your magic specific power. So let's talk about blood specifically. Blood, the reason that blood is more important, and I use that term loosely, than any other bodily fluid is that it is your life force. Without blood, you cannot live. You can probably live without saliva because you can moisten your mouth other ways, but it's difficult. But blood, if you are devoid of blood, you are done. If you get exsanguinated, you're history. It's what feeds your cells. It's what provides nutrients to the body, to the lungs, to the brain. It's what keeps you going, and it's vital. So that is what makes it specific. Other fluids you may or may not be able to live without in whatever capacity. Urine, you might argue, is one that you need to, but it's something that you're expelling. It's not something that's within you and a part of you every day of your life. Blood is. Therefore, it makes your magic tied to you. Now, in terms of using blood in magic, you can use your blood, animal blood, somebody else's blood, another creature's blood, whatever, right? We found aliens, you could use their blood. Here's the reason that you would use blood in your magic at all. If you are conducting a spell that ties you to someone else, using your blood is going to tie that spell to you most specifically. If you are doing a working for someone else, using their bodily fluids of some sort is going to tie that spell to them in a way that's very intimate and direct and exclusive. Okay, so blood provides not just an exclusivity, but also it's that vital force of life. That's what that blood represents. That's why blood's so important in Christianity too. Jesus gave his blood and his body, right? So when they go to communion, they drink his blood, right? Okay, vampires need blood. Yeah. There's a reason that it's so important, and that's the reason. It's specific to you, and it is your life force. Without it, you're not a physical being. So it's what ties everything directly to you. Now, how do you use blood in magic? One thing that I do want to mention, and this may be arguable, but your atame should never be used to draw blood unless it's your own, if you're using it for yourself. But the reason that I say that is because this is a tool that's specific to you. It's what's directing your energy to open your circle. It's what you're using to ceremonially slice things, okay, such as cutting the energy to open the circle, which is always unbroken. However, the minute you infuse somebody else's blood onto your Athame, then you have infused somebody else's energy and life force to your tool. To me, that kind of renders your tool, you know, kind of meaningless. Now, that being said, the only exception I make to that is plant blood. And yes, plants bleed. All that little fluid when you cut a plant that comes out, that could be considered their blood, okay? It contains all the information that makes that plant and not a rose bush or a tree or a whatever. So when it comes to that, I do use the my Athame to cut herbs. You're really supposed to use a baleen, which is like a little hooked, it's like a hooked knife that's got a hole in it, and you put it on your finger and you kind of slice the herb or the plant that way. And it's supposed to be very, very sharp because you want to minimize the damage that you cause. My Athame is not super duper sharp, but I can use it to cut off, you know, leaves or petals or roots or what have you. When I do that, I always ask the permission of the plant to take part of it. I try to leave something, water or nutrients of some sort, to replenish the plant or to care for the plant, to minimize the damage to the plant. And I will then also cleanse my Athame both physically and spiritually of any energy that may come from that plant, unless it's going to be used within the spell that I'm doing. So, and that's the exception I make to that. What kind of blood might you use? Well, you can use any type of blood. You can use a bloody nose, you can prick your finger. A lot of people will use a pin and prick their finger and add some drops of their blood to something. I am a fond user of menstrual blood. Here's what I do. I collect it from my sanitary napkins. That way I never have to touch it, because that's really kind of gross. But I'll take the cotton swabs and kind of rub them, and then I put them in the jar. Now, you know, a lot of people are going to be like, that's disgusting. Suppose so. However, what makes menstrual blood specifically important is that that is specifically the blood that's related to my ability to bring forth life. So it's going to be super duper powerful in terms of potency in my spell work. And I will use that when I'm tying a spell directly to myself, or using it for myself, or to give it some oomph of my energy to try to do that. And what's great about putting it on Q-tips like this, and you can do this with any blood, is that you just take out the Q-tip, you take a pair of scissors, and you snip the tip. You never have to touch it. So that's one way to do it. Same thing for anybody else. You can have them collect their blood in any way they see fit. If you wanted to put it into a tiny, tiny little vial like this. Now, I will tell you, the blood coagulates, of course. It dries out. So it does not matter if blood is fresh blood or dried blood. So that's what I'm saying. Put it on Q-tips, add it to cotton, as I mentioned in my wildcrafting video this past week. Cotton balls are great for that, because, you know, if you have a little cut on your face or something, you can just dab it and then you've got that. Same thing for other things. Now, you'll hear people use things like fingernails and hair, and that's absolutely okay too, especially if the hair has a root, because then it's got your mitochondrial DNA. That definitely links it to you. That's how they identify bodies and find criminals. So you can use other things. Blood is not necessary in a spell, but it definitely will add some oomph, and it definitely provides a link to the person of whose blood you are using, or the animal that you are using. Now, we're going to talk next week about the use of animals in the craft. There are ways you can use animal blood without harming the animal specifically. I'm one who, I love animals, all animals. I don't harm animals, but I do use animal parts in my practice. I'll talk more about that next week. Animal blood is something that I do use in my practice. So, like, if one of my animals gets a little cut, or if they're fighting and I cleanse the space, I will save the tissues and stuff for that purpose, to kind of usually it's protective workings, or if, you know, one of my animals has a specific characteristic, then I may want to use that characteristic if they're particularly persistent, or they're very fast, or very young, or something of that nature. I may want to take something from that animal, but it's usually protective workings. And when I use blood in my magic, if it's someone else's blood, then I will do that. Now, I have used someone else's semen in a spell to cut ties, because this person was going through a divorce, and her husband, her should have been ex-husband, should have been ex like 2 years prior, kept prolonging the divorce so that she could not move forward. But he was moving on. Had a girlfriend, she was living with him, but he didn't want the soon-to-be ex-wife to have a boyfriend because the sons were living with her. Yeah, he was a jerk. So she still had one of his toys, and we utilized some of the swabbing from that to cut that tie. They were divorced the next week. It was finalized by the judge, because the judge apparently also got tired of dealing with him. But I like to think we helped that process up. Now, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to add about Blood Magic. Again, I think I've kind of explained pretty thoroughly why I feel that Blood Magic is powerful, how you can use it, where you can obtain it from. Like I said, you can prick your finger, prick somebody else's finger. If you wanted to infuse it, like for example, if I was going to do a working with maybe another witch, then I might want both of our blood to combine within that spell. You could add it to oils, although I will tell you that blood and oil do not mix. It's like blood and water. They don't really mix, but you can use it to anoint candles. You can use it as an additive with an oil. You can drop it into a bag. Now, one of the things that I did do, I made a Native American style beaded bag for someone, and I was sewing the leather, and as I'm sewing the leather, of course I'm trying to put the needle through the leather, and I did not have a leather needle as I'm doing the bead work, and so I poked myself a lot, so a lot of my blood went into that. But as I did that, I tried to infuse my personal energy into that working, primarily to keep myself on that person's mind, but also to put my protective energies out there to keep this individual safe. So, in any case, that's another way in which you can do it. You know, if you're sewing something, like putting together a poppet or a bag. Now, if you're using a poppet, I will say this. If you're using a poppet, you probably want to be careful when you're sewing the poppet to not poke yourself, because the poppet is supposed to represent the person to whom you are directing the spell, or using the poppet as a representation of. Now, if you're using the poppet as a representation of yourself, hunky-dory, then, you know, poke away and add your blood. But if it's supposed to represent somebody else, you may want their blood, or toenails, or hair, or saliva, or urine, or whatever you can acquire of this individual. Usually it's hair in that case, but blood would work if they're willing to give you some. And again, it doesn't have to be fresh blood. It can be dried blood. So anytime, you know, you want to do a protective working for somebody, kind of save any tissue that they might. If they get a bloody nose, save the tissue. You never know. Label it so you remember who it is. You might want to date it just so you know, but really it doesn't matter, because their blood is what ties them to their physical body from now until the day they die. So that is definitely a few ways in which you can use it. You can drop it into mojo bags. You can put it directly into the bag itself. You could, like I said, you can anoint candles. You can add it to oils. You can add it to incenses. You can add it to just about anything to make that spell work. So that's my spiel on Blood Magic. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Enjoy the rest of the videos. And if you didn't watch last week's videos, you might want to go back and watch them. Thanks so much. Have a blessed day, and blessed be.